Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is not going to be covering the same kind of content that it normally does. Normally we're talking about automotive technologies and performance, so on and so forth. This video, as I've done with multiple on this channel, I'm talking about one of the main topics that's coming up in our society. For those of you that are not familiar with that, we're going to get into it. And there's another channel out there called Zac Rios. Approximately 2 weeks ago, he released a video about the cost of youth sports. So today I want to dive into that because my household is a multi-sport family. And what I can compare to from when I was a younger child to today, it's something very evident that we're seeing within our society. So we need to find the issue before we can solve the problem. So we're going to dive into that. We're going to cover everything from a 5-6-year-old getting into different sports all the way up to adults that are competing in different kind of sports, whether it's automotive sports, Olympic sports, professional sports. We're going to kind of break it down as I see it. If you disagree with these opinions, you can take it as is. Just a little insider knowledge, a little personal information. I ran for mayor here in my hometown. Approximately a week and a half ago, I lost the election. But through that process, I got involved with the taxes that are going into multiple different things in our community, and I was made aware of the funding in youth sports throughout the entire United States. So during this video, we'll be talking about some of the experiences that I've had just within the last year to help describe why we are seeing prices go so high. And it's not necessarily just inflation, folks. Many of the issues that we're seeing with youth sports is because of us right here. Okay. We're going to get into that. The generational gap and differences in our society is contributing to the higher cost of youth sports. It's our fault. So we have the chance of changing that right now. It's whether or not you want to get on board. So with that, again, Zac Rios, if you would like to see his approximately hour-long presentation of content on his channel, go and tune in. I'm not associated with him. This video is not sponsored by anybody. This is the honest God truth from my point of view, what I've experienced both with children of ages from 6 to 17 and also myself competing in the college level sports. So yes, nobody's, in professional sports, but the transition, the journey of youth sports. Hopefully you guys didn't get too much of a reflection here. Youth sports and the cost. The costs are unreal. If you're in a community or in a region where you put emphasis on your student or your child exceeding in a sport, how much money are you spending every year? Within this video, there's families saying they spent anywhere from $16,000 to $60,000 per year to put their child through the sport. Folks, are you insane? Okay, the cost. Well, as a coach, I will even tell my players, 90% of what your performance is what you do at home. Okay, it's not the hour-long practice or 2 or 3 hour-long practice you have per week. It's what you do in your personal time that dictates who you become. That is true no matter what age you are. Okay, so even for you adults out there that it might be in your career choice, it is what you do outside of work that determines how good you are at your job. Okay, it's not how you're, just from the time you clock in or whatever, what you're doing there. It's what you're advancing yourself outside of that, either through continued education or within your own research and experiences once again. So we're going to skip around a little bit. So obviously this video is not in perfect order. We're going to talk about different colleges. So many of the adults out there that are sending their kids through school that are in sports, they might be thinking, for instance, like baseball, that I want my kid to get a scholarship to be able to attend a D1 college, realizing that's the elite colleges within the United States. Folks, it hasn't changed throughout history. Okay, you might not want to agree to this, but this is the facts. Normally your students that are getting school scholarships, or even playing on the high school teams is because they have connections. It's not so much how good they are, it's who they're connected with. Okay. Some of you might disagree with that, but that is the truth. From my experience, and it might be different for you, let's say for football, the high school football quarterback is normally somebody associated either as a coach's kid or somebody very prominent within the community, somebody with a lot of money and a lot of connections. It's not entirely based upon talent, okay? And even for high school students that are performing greater than some other ones, it's because they have had the time or the private lessons to make them better. That 90% done outside of these school practices. So for instance, going back to 1990s when I went to high school, we had three individuals that were playing for the quarterback position. And of the three, there was one that had a lot of talent. He could, throw the football like a laser, very accurate. But when he was in the pocket in the games during the defensive, he got that stage fright where he would start to panic and rush things, and he would throw interceptions. Okay, but his talent level when it came to throwing a football was exceptional. Well, he came from a very poor family. His family actually lived in a mobile home. Okay, so not a whole lot of connections. The family didn't have the money to spend for the greatest equipment, and he was still able to perform. It was his daily experience of living that a school of hard knocks, where his family didn't have the money, they didn't have the technology to be sitting behind a Nintendo or an Atari or a Game Boy, so on and so forth. His playtime, his personal time was outside of the home. Parents say, go out, do not come back in until the streetlights are on. Okay, that was in the 1990s. But the player that ended up being the quarterback of the team happened to be the child of the principal of the school. Okay, again, that daddy ball some of you refer to, it's the connections, who you know. Who are the coaches going to try to please? Because if the coaches say, yeah, I'm cutting your kid, it's probably threatening to their job as a coach for the local high school team. So there's some favoritism shown to that. That continues throughout our lives. For you adults out there, you realize that if your boss's kid gets a job in your corporation, if you come down on them, your job is threatened. Okay? It never stops. It's something our society is practicing. So we're going to fast forward ahead, approximately to the early 2000s, when I was in college. Now, I attended college at a fairly prominent college. Now, I didn't get there because I was drafted or got any kind of scholarships. I actually joined the military in order to pay for my college education. I played on a college football team. I walked on to tryouts and I made it. Okay? After getting to know me more from the coaches and so on and so forth, establishing those personal relationships, there was another player that was chosen, not because of performance and numbers, was chosen because there was more connections. This player had actually been drafted and gotten scholarships to the university. So even though his numbers were not as high as mine on the field, he was given the choice over, the starting team or the practice team. That individual went on to play in the major leagues. He ended up playing in the NFL. Lo and behold, after about 3 years of being in the NFL, he got hammered with some very, very strong litigation to the point where he was kicked out of the NFL, sat a few years in prison. That does not determine the value and worth of a person. That's what we're missing in today's society. Now, when we go all the way back and talk about youth sports, that is currently happening today in 2026, we can look back at the last 10 years of different athletes that have stood out in their field of expertise. One of them would be Michael Phelps. Most of you recognize him as a multi-gold medalist swimmer. For any of you that question how much time a student athlete will be dedicating to a sport, Michael Phelps is a perfect example. to where his family actually pulled him out of school. They would homeschool him in the times that he was not at practice. He'd be up at 4 o'clock in the morning swimming for 4 to 5 hours before he had any school time. And then after school time, a little bit of rest time, he was right back into the pool. And yes, all of that transitioned into being a gold medalist within our Olympics. What kind of a childhood did Michael Phelps have? And after he won all those gold medals, what did he do? He rebelled. Once he became an adult and he won all those medals, he rebelled, giving up the chances of ever competing again. Taking illegal drugs, getting in a little bit of trouble. Okay, his upbringing made him a professional athlete, but didn't make him a complete human being, a successful human being. Okay, he's going to go down in history as being a gold medalist, but does that make him a good person? Now, all of our youth, there's multiple training facilities set up, whether it's professional sports athletes that have now retired. They're looking at ways to continue to make money, to keep their hands, within the game, let's say. They're now offering to teach local youth in their communities. Some of them will donate money to local youth programs. Some of them will even build multi-million-dollar training facilities. Okay, so all of this money flow going into youth sports, it's only going up and up and up because we as adults, we allow it to happen. Now, in the video from Zac Rios, he had multiple clips of parents coming out complaining about the cost of the equipment or the how much money they're putting into their child's youth sports. One example of an individual saying, for $750 in order to buy all the equipment for her 6 or 7-year-old hockey player was over $700. You are paying that amount to purchase that equipment. What says that you can't go down to a local thrift store and buy the equipment? Okay, just a question, right? Because I also have a 7-8-year-old hockey player, and some of the equipment has been donated to the facility we use, but if I had to go out and actually buy all the equipment, I would be buying used. There's an individual in our community that's all they do is when people are done with their hockey interest, they'll sell the equipment in like a Play Again Sports, and you can turn around and buy that equipment for less than $100. Even goalie equipment for less than $300. Head to toe, full equipment. So it's the families that are normally complaining about the cost that are not taking the education, the upbringing of saying you don't have to buy the greatest or brand new things to compete. Well, my player might be equipped with less than $100 of equipment. He's standing out amongst his peers. He's one of the better players within the hockey league. Now, that's not the only sport he's in. So again, it's how much money you spend on your child's sports is entirely up to you. And if you're providing them with the most expensive stuff, that's what they're going to expect when they become adults. Even some of these adults complaining about the cost of the sports equipment, they're taking the videos from vehicles that cost over $80,000 or from homes that cost over $250,000. How is it that our society, those that have ample money, are the ones complaining about the cost when there's families literally living in mobile homes that still have children performing at the same level with nothing but a stick off the ground to play baseball, with maybe one ball that if they lose it, they can't get another one until they either go and catch a foul ball or something like that from a local professional team. It's the adults. We cannot complain about the cost of the sports unless the adults decide, hey, we're not going to spend that kind of money. But there are those in our communities, in our society, that are willing to spend the money because they have it. And it's those individuals that's destroying sports. Okay? It's that simple. It's the adults willing to spend that kind of money that's the problem. So now a little note I have here too that I want to mention along with the training. Training facilities are popping up all over the United States. Now here in our community, we just had a brand new jail built. Okay? Not a prison, a jail. And the local government spent approximately $90 million to build it. It's to the point where the taxpayers are never going to pay for it. It'll never be paid for. By the time that we start taking a larger chunk out of that cost as taxpayers, they're going to need to be remodeled, they're going to need to be updated, they're going to need to expand. We're never going to pay for it. But the new jail was voted on by the public, and they voted it through. Okay? All right, folks? Now let's put this in perspective. In the state of Wisconsin, where I'm from, there was over $6.8 billion of public school funding just approved. Or excuse me, that was what was proposed. Out of the referendums by the voting public of Wisconsin across the public school areas, more than half of that passed in last week's ballot, the same day that I lost the election. The voters agreed to it. So $4 billion approximately was approved to fund our public schools through their sports education, their teachers' positions, and their ever-increasing faculty. Are students actually getting a better education? Again, folks, it's even in school, the intelligence of our children, 90% of it comes from at home. It's not within the 6 or 7 credited hours of a day that they get an education. It's literally what they get at home. How much are you getting paid to be a parent? Think of all the things that you do. Okay, schools provide breakfast, lunch. You provide breakfast, lunch, snacks, provide transportation, provide education, provide housing. How much do you as a parent get paid to be a parent? Not nearly as much as what somebody in our public schools gets paid, right? Just a comment there. Now, if you want your child to be advanced within education, are you going to take the time or even hire some private tutors to get your kid further ahead? How much are you paying for that? Is it making them a better person to become a better adult? Okay, just a few questions for you there. Communities. Like I said, our community voted to build a brand new $90 million jail. The same time they turned around and passed $19 million worth of public school funding. Where do they have the evidence that then turn around and complain about $1,000 for their sports equipment? Okay, something's lacking there. Is that within the math and money education that our students are receiving, that they carry that on to their adulthood? Who's at fault for it? We as adults. If we allow it to happen, we vote to increase cost. Don't complain about the cost going up. If you're willing to pay for it, don't complain about it. And if you're sitting in a $250,000 house or a $80,000 new vehicle, $1,000 is nothing. It's a drop in a bucket. Now, at the same time, in my community, we're also looking at building one of these indoor training facilities. Now, if you remember when I said our new jail costs approximately $90 million of taxpayer money, we had a group out of Arizona called the Huddle Up Group. They were hired to come in our community to create, to cover a survey to see what the public wants, what kind of sports are needing indoor training facilities, and they came up that between dance and pom or cheerleading is the largest extractor of money from youth sports. Dance and cheerleading. Okay? How many of you dance or cheerleading parents out there, how much money are you sticking into your athlete? Okay, because they're considered to be sports. How much money are you spending on your student? Are you spending $1,000 for hockey equipment? Are you spending $500 for a baseball bat? Most of your costs come in hotel rooms, okay, travel. Okay, we'll get into that in just a little bit. And does dance and prom, does that transfer over to something in the adult life? Are they going to get a scholarship to college for dance or prom? No. Okay, so again, folks, this huddle up group, what they came in and decided would be a good idea. Our community accepted it. They're looking at another referendum this fall to build a $70 million indoor training facility. $90 million for convicts that are sitting in jail, or $70 million for our students to have an indoor training facility. All at the cost of taxpayers. Now, yes, that's going to draw some revenue in, right? Because for every athlete that uses it, there's going to be rent, there's going to be equipment purchases, there's going to be time slots that need to be filled. The list of costs goes on and on and on to increase the amount of money flowing in our communities. Something that I was presented with when running for a political office. As a parent, I could see that and be like, something is wrong here. How did we get here? Or did it ever change? Because even going back to the 1990s or even 1980s when I played sports, was it the same circumstance back then? Have things actually changed, or are they continuing to be exactly the way it is? We're only continuing what we practiced years ago. It's not nothing new to spend this kind of money on new sports. It's always been expensive. For example, I got a few things out here. I'm just going to run through this list real quick. For those of you that shoot archery, okay, back in the day, you could get recurve bows for fairly cheap. Even youth sports, youth archery, you could get a bow and arrow right now from your local Walmart for less than $50. Okay, not a compound, nothing spectacular, even wooden arrows. Okay, but if you go to a youth organization that are getting kids into archery, you'll kids show up with the most recent compound bow, with the most advanced carbon or aluminum arrows, everything custom from the bow to the arrows to the release. Even the targets are more advanced. It's not a cardboard box with multiple layers of cardboard. It's now the most advanced technical foam, so on and so forth, or 3D targets. They're kids. First year kids being introduced to archery, they're being provided with the most expensive and best technology available. They're not learning from the school of hard knocks, starting with a recurve bow and wooden arrows. They're not. Who's to blame for that? The adults. Another example I have here, obviously, little pigskin, right? Football. Okay, how many of you remember a football costing $2? Okay. As the name says here, I'm not picking on Franklin or anything like that. This would go for any manufacturer. How many of you that would show up at a high school football practice right now with a Franklin football that you'd be shunned? Okay. Oh, you can't have that. We got to have, we got to have the top of the line, most expensive football available, something that's made out of real leather, not the synthetic plastic. Okay. And a real football for high school level is approximately $80 to $100 right now, if not more. Can the individual that throws this football going to be just as talented as the one with the $80 or $100 football? Who's to blame for our youth sports and the cost of just the football? The adults. Another example. Very, very cheap T-ball baseball glove. Okay. Nothing fairly expensive about this whatsoever. Very plain synthetic material, fake leather. Okay. Something you can pick up at Walmart for less than $20. Youth sports today, especially within travel ball or club ball, your typical baseball player is going to be spending close from anywhere from $500 to $500 just for a baseball glove. What are you as an adult supplying to your player? Baseball bats. Well, it's the most recent dub that's being created. A composite bat to an older aluminum alloy or a wooden Louisville Slugger baseball bat. Even the wooden Louisville baseball bats now are going for over $60 in used sizes. The dub is a $499 listed baseball bat right now. A $500 bat does not fix a $5 swing. A $10 baseball glove will perform the same as a $500 baseball glove. Who's to blame for the cost of equipment? If you're going out and buying the most recent Wilson 1000 or a Rawlings Heart of the Hide for your 9-year-old player, who's to blame for the cost of sports? It's not the kids. It's the adults. Something I'm very familiar with, fishing. Okay, this just happens to be an ice fishing, roll fishing line. How many of you can remember going fishing for less than $10? That was the cost of the fishing pole, the fishing reel, the fishing line, some hooks, and a shovel to find the worms to go fishing. Today, in the bass fishing community, a single lure can go up towards $5,000 for one fishing lure. Fishing rods that are well over $500, reels that are over $500, fishing line that used to cost a couple bucks, you're now looking at $50. Who's to blame for the cost of the sport? Now, again, some of the adults out there, especially in the professional fishing communities, are you going fishing without that $80,000 boat with all the most advanced electronics on it to your $100,000 tow rig to put the boat in the water? Are you fishing with less than $100 of gear on your boat within the fishing equipment? No. You as an adult, when you are bringing a child onto your boat or going fishing, what kind of equipment are you buying for them? Are you starting with that shovel, go out and dig up some worms? Here's a few hooks, here's a really old fishing rod. Are you fishing with the hard knocks to teach them where to find the fish, how to catch them, how to, release the fish once they catch it? Or is everything about you have to catch the biggest fish? You have to show something to show off. Whose fault is it? Is it the kids or is it the adults? And can we as adults determine how much money we're spending on equipment? Do we have to have the $500 fishing rod, or can they do it? Can they catch fish with the $30 rod? Don't complain until you've actually answered that question for yourself. Now, another example I have here is more for the adults, those with driver's license or older. Okay, just a typical helmet. So whether you're in automotive sports, whether it be circle track racing, drag racing, motocross, go-karts, any kind of wheeled performance, what are you willing to spend as an adult to carry on your hobby? And are you necessarily standing out as being the champion or the best within the sport? Or is it the individuals with the most amount of money? Or the ones with the most amount of sponsors on the side of the vehicle? Is it about your driving performance, or is it about the performance of the machine? Excuse me. It's the environment that you create as an adult to our youth that will drive the cost. If you want to buy the best of everything, it's going to cost you. But there's always cheaper alternatives that will still allow you to play the sport and still be as good or perform as good as the other players. Even as adults within the auto or wheeled performances, you don't have to have the best in order to compete. You don't. It's about the environment that you create for yourself or your children. The only person to blame for high cost is yourself. Be realistic. Travel. Now, in our community, like I said, we brought this Huddle Up group in to take surveys and see what kind of sports we're interested. I mentioned that dance and prom were at the top of the list. One of the individuals from the Huddle Up group mentioned that he's from Arizona and that his 9-year-old is in 9U travel ball, baseball, okay? That part of their organization is they travel to Southern California to compete. What? A 9-year-old traveling states away to go compete on a baseball diamond at the 9-year-old level. Can you imagine the costs associated with that? Just within your travel costs, your fuel, your vehicle, your time off of work, the hotel stays or how many days you stay at the location, the amount of food. But governments are not against that because that's part of tourism. But if you're spending that type of money on a 9-year-old to travel for baseball, who's to blame for the cost of sports? The adults, the so-called professionals driving up the cost. Now, what does that enable? It enables the students, the children of rich families to get recognized, to travel, to play at different locations because they have the money. It doesn't mean that those individuals are the best at the sport. Whose fault is that? Adults. No different than going back to my years playing high school football. It wasn't the best player, it was the principal's kid that got to play football. Yeah, they went to state. We all went to state. Years later, approximately in 2018, our local high school decided they were going to start recognizing former athletes, adding a high school Hall of Fame. Now, out of that team that went to state, 5 players got recognized to the Hall of Fame. 2 of them got scholarships to go to UW-Madison. Okay? Many of you, D1 college, right? Right up there for football. Wisconsin Badgers. Both these players, while they were elite and went to state level for high school, within the first 3 games of competing at the high school D1 level, they were eliminated from the team because they could not perform. Because they got there because of their last name, not because of their performance. But they completed their education there because they came from families with a lot of money that they didn't need the scholarships to send their kids there. While the better athletes, the ones that actually had the statistics and the performance, were overlooked. Whose fault is it for the cost of sports? The adults. We as adults cannot pass the buck on to anybody else. We are the reason why youth sports is so expensive. And if you're spending those high dollars, don't point your finger at anybody else but yourself. So again, going back, this video is obviously an extension of what I just watched from Zac Rios' video 9 days ago. Whether you're on YouTube or on Facebook, I've posted things over the last 2 years pertaining to the cost of youth sports. Yes, do I spend a little bit of extra money for my children to attend some of these sports things? I've set limits. I also allow my players to show their performance through their personal actions, not through the equipment. We're using stuff that we've purchased from Goodwill. We're using stuff that we've found at thrift stores. Even to the point where our travel, my youngest youth travel, even as a coach, I've been given a limit by our organization how much money we can spend on tournaments that we travel to. I've made the agreement with my families that we will not be traveling over an hour distance. We're not going to be competing against anybody that, everything is about the most expensive thing there is. My 6, 7, 8, and 9-year-old individuals, players, athletes, when they're done at the end of the season, they are leaving with a positive memory of that point in their lives. That they learned how to clean up after themselves. They learned how to use manners. They learned how to lose and be a good sportsman. They've learned respect. They've also learned that sometimes the most expensive training equipment is not needed. Literally a stick laying out in the field can fulfill the needs. We as parents and as adults are responsible for how our younger generations are being raised. And being from that Generation X, we didn't have it all, folks. I believe we were spoiled. One of the things I can compare to that's actually gone down in cost, believe it or not, is one of the only things that has actually gone down in cost within sports. And that's what's on your feet. Going back even to the 1980s, when Michael Jordan came out with his Jordan Air shoes, to Reebok's pumps, to the Converse pump shoes for basketball. Okay, a basketball wasn't very expensive. There was no rental time to use the court. It was just scheduled whether or not there was an opening or not. The travel was within a half an hour, community of schools, or even within your own hometown. But the shoes on the athlete's feet cost over $100 in 1987 for those Nike Jordans. Today, you can get basketball shoes, good quality shoes, for under $50. Hey, folks, again, it comes down to what we have created as a society. Are those players that grew up with the Michael Jordan shoes that were over $100, are they now, known as being the GOAT within the NBA? I'm going to close the video out with this, folks. Again, you can take this however you will if you've stayed this long. We have seen professional athletes banned from their honorary halls because of performance-enhancing drugs to illegal sports betting. The late, great Pete Rose was banned from baseball or from ever being included in the Hall of Fame because he bet on his own teams as a player and as a coach. Here in the state of Wisconsin, it is now being allowed for our local youth sports to even be bet on at the local tribal Indian casinos. not in person. You can literally digitally go online and bet on local sports. You can go to Vegas and bet on all the professional sports. You can even go and bet on the draft of college athletes. If they're going to be drafted at D4 or D3 or D1 colleges. We have literally shunned individuals for their entire lives from being depicted as legends because they were betting. We as a society of adults are now turning around saying, we want to bet on everything. It's all about the money, folks. So when I see videos like this, when I talk to parents like this, when I go into sports organizations or even talk in our local sports commission here in our community about the cost of the $70 million indoor training facility, if we as adults allow it to happen, we can't complain about the costs. If we're promoting expensive sports, we can't complain about the costs. What are you doing as an adult to teach our youth better than what we are doing? Just yesterday, speaking of sports trading cards. It's a huge billion-dollar industry. Yesterday, I took my children to a trading card show, whether it be Pokemon or sports affiliated cards. Okay, this card of Christian Yelich, okay, one of our local brewers. He's going to be a legend, right? He's going to go down in history as being one of the better Milwaukee Brewers or Major League Baseball players of all time. This card at max is worth 10 cents right now. Now, if I were to send this off to a grading company for approximately $25 to get graded to tell me the condition of the card, it doesn't change the quantity of this card being produced. But the value of this card now jumps up. Instead of being 10 cents, it jumps up to being $26.10. Baseball cards, sports trading cards. Yesterday, the same card that was graded in a grade 10 from PSA was being sold for $400 by a local retailer. We turned around and bought it for 10 cents. Brand new, right out of the pack. Who is driving up the cost of baseball cards? Is it the kids? It's the adults. While I was at this card show, Pokemon, right? Huge thing, right? There's possibly 5 children in the entire card show that were under the age of 12. Majority of the Pokemon card traders were adults. Folks, our society is sick. We have a cancer. The way that we are conducting our society as adults is now rubbing off to the point where generations expect the best of everything no matter what. It's not deliver newspapers for $2 anymore. Now it's even our high school students, when they look at a job, unless they're getting paid $60,000 a year, they're not going to take the job. Oh, you want me to show up there for 4 hours after my school and you only pay minimum wage? You're not good enough for me. Where has that mentality of the millennials or Generation Y, whatever they're called now, or Z, where has that mentality come from? The adults. So for every one of the comments or concerns from the Zac Rios, a sports equipment cost video, the parents complaining about it, pay attention to what's right behind those adults, or even how those adults are addressed. Individuals clearing at least $100,000 a year in their salaries are complaining about $1,000 of equipment for their child. Cancer. There's no cure for that. And our kids are coming out with that kind of mentality. It's always been there. It's not new. Hope you enjoyed.